Hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a 360 video and we're going to run through the whole pipeline and getting it through to splatting. I've included that Park Road demo file, so we're going to do it with that, so you can follow along if you want to. Running the software, we are going to run the debug bat. Can't say that properly. Just in case anything goes wrong and I want to fix it. You can run just the exe, you don't have to run this. But I just wanted to take you through it. So this particular project I have run, and what I'm going to do is start from scratch, so you should get the same results. And I'm just going to rename this old so we can go back to the completed project just to see how that's turned out. So once you have extracted from your 360 camera, it will take any equilateral video. So basically 2:1 ratio with lots of distortion at the bottom. Nearly all the software does that. I tend to do an alignment lock when I do that. Set any grading or color changes I might want to do. And then this, I just walk in a couple of loops in this little small section for these two buildings of the area that I'm focusing on. So if I drag this on, you'll get this sort of intro frame. Just gives you a little bit of information about the video, where it's detected if it's rectangular or not. So the approach I tend to use is I will do a small run of extracted frames, test those settings, and then run it on a much larger one. Now, you can just pick from one of these two. So if we just said we're going to go with 360 ready, and that will set everything to run that type of workflow. So where we've got masking, alignment settings, all of those kind of things get set through one of these workflows. So I could just hit this now, run it, and that's pretty much what this old project is. But just to show you the workflow, so say if I set 30 frames here, and the workflow is also, you kind of run left to right through what you're doing. So if we extract 30 frames, I can just run this here. And if I just move this over here, you'll see it's running an FFmpeg command using hardware acceleration to do the extraction. Once extraction finishes, tell you that 30 frames have been loaded. It runs the sharp frame analysis because I had sharp frames filter on. If you didn't want this running, you can just turn this off, run the extraction. You want to do it for sharp frames filtering. I added this slider in, so basically you can slide this threshold, and essentially that is where anything above the threshold it says needs to be replaced. And I'll take you through a little bit on the workflow here as well. Sometimes you can get sharpness reported as blurry, but where there are no features. So you have to be a little bit wary of the exact sort of information here. Once it finishes, it creates a report which you can open up and then get an idea of what those are, and there's an explanation of what's going on, the processes that it's using, all of that kind of stuff, which is quite useful. So if I wanted to extract frames, I'm just going to replace this one blow frame here. One of the key things here is the duration to search. And so what this does is it searches in a 6 frame window, but it will split that in half and do 3 above, or 3 in front and 3 behind in terms of the timeline, and then analyze those frames and then pick the sharpest one on which to replace it. You also have a way you can turn off this skip dialog that will pop up every time if you want to, and you can decide if you want to replace it with a sharper one or just remove it from the sequence because the frames look bad. I tend to find, like with handheld videos, you get a much better this is much more useful, I would say. In 360, unless you're in really low light or a low shutter angle, you'll tend to get sharp images out of it that are good enough for splatting anyway. So we click apply filter. Again, if you want that dialog to go away, you can just click on the skip confirmation. And so now what this will do is extract those frames, and this can take a while. And as I said, I tend to, you want to go here and open frame to really look at what it's going to replace it with to check whether that's needed or not. The other thing is it's obviously looking adjacent frames, and so you'll get a little jump or a skip within that. You know, you really want to be zooming right in to check whether you're actually getting something better out of that. So once that's done though, the threshold stays where it is, and you see that now goes to an orange frame. So if I step, you'll see it sort of almost looks like it's adjacent in terms of where it picked that. I'm extracting every 30 frames. Just check the video. So you can hover over this. Okay, yeah, it's done those 30. So yeah, that's how the sharp frame analysis works. I tend to only use it on videos rather than 360 videos because they tend to be pretty sharp overall, unless you're on something vibrating like a car or something that might cause bumps. So once we've done that, and I'm taking you through this manually, you can basically just hit batch all, and each one of these main workflows can be turned off from the batch all just with this extract frames, masking, etc. on off, and you'll see you get this little grey bar there. So if I ran batch all now, I'd get extract and a line, and I wouldn't get any masking done. So that can be useful as well. I tend to try it, like I'll do mask single. And what I've done with the SAM3 model is that sits in RAM and then gets loaded into VRAM to speed up that process a bit as well. So you might see your RAM change a little bit, and you'll see this has now come up. Now, what kind of happens on this is I'm holding a mobile phone looking at what it's capturing. It's not really getting that. So I've got two options here. I can go in and paint that mask. If it's on a long sequence, you tend to do that. But while I'm at this setting up stage, I might put like mobile or something like that and then mask the single again. And not the issue, but something to bear in mind is that it runs each prompt. So a person is one run, mobile is another run. So if you pick everything, like I did, people and everything they might ever be carrying or moving with, you'll see loads of these. This is very slow to run because it's going to run through the cycle of detection for every single word that's in there. So just be aware of that. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it'll take much longer. So I'll put mobile. I can't remember what I put actually. And then you'll see this is now filled in, and we're only doing this on one frame. Now, something that's really useful to know for the masking is that you can just do open masks and you're into your project and then the subfolder. This gets written out even when you're doing a mask single, so you can fix a single frame if you wanted to. Let me just go through the rest of those folders actually. So you then have a paint one, which gets outputted if you do any painting. Now the mask painting, as you click on this, it will boost the exposure. I found that to be a useful way to do it. And essentially you're painting a mask with the left mouse, and then you can right mouse and remove anything out from everything. If I cleared this frame of the paint mask, you'll see they come back. So because they're independent streams, you can't break it. Is kind of so I could go in here and erase this, and oh no, if I've got to run the whole lot again, I could just do clear frame. The other thing that's really useful if I was holding a rig is I could paint a mask, whatever the shape of the rig might be, and then I could do apply to all frames. And so what that will do, and this is especially useful if you're doing the raw 360 where a portion of the camera is visible, is you can paint this and then that mask will exist over all the frames. Again, I can do a clear all and that'll get rid of everything. Let's get rid of... I know, sorry, it got rid of all the painted ones because I was in that mode. If I did clear all here, it should get rid of it in that particular mode that we've selected. So the workflow is you tend to run that, get your AI settings working for what you need, test on a few frames, and then you would just do run this step only. So every one of these workflows you can manually step through. You don't have to batch everything, but batching is super useful when you want to do multiple videos or multiple settings on the same video. But I'll do a separate tutorial for that. So if I hit run here, there's a few things in advanced settings which are useful, but everything is set. Now, because I've changed and added mobile in, it's realized something's different from this workflow. And so you'll notice that whenever you change things, it switched to a custom, but that just makes you aware that you've deviated away from it. So in terms of the advanced sections, I'll go separate videos on doing specific things, but you can invert the masks. Unwrapping 360 essentially breaks this into multiple kind of cubic projections and then runs the masking on it, because essentially the data was trained on non-360 video, so it's not too good at these kind of distortions. And as this runs, this will add the masks on. So during this process, you don't have to sit there and wait for it to work. You can actually go in and review them, and you'll say, oh, there's some birds here. Now I could go fix that one frame, or I could just quickly paint them if I was that inclined. And the wheel mouse changes the size here, and you can do it there as well. In this case, I can turn off the boost exposure, and basically this turns on every time you have this checked on. If you uncheck it, it won't do it. So it's kind of up to giving you the choice, basically. So these, if I really wanted to paint those birds out, I don't think they would create particular artifacts or anything. But you can see, as this is still running, I can create masks. I can be like, you know what, I want to paint all of that green in there. Don't trust that. And you can use the arrow keys while you're doing that. So that sort of speeds up that process as well. So masking is really useful. Essentially, you're going to create artifacts in your splat. So anything that you don't want in it is worth masking out. So usually person will get everything you need, but there might be cases where there's buggies or prams or other things that are moving within the environment that you want to remove. So masking's completed. If it thinks it needs to combine any of those masks, so say I'm reviewing them and I decide I want to paint one in there, as I move frames, it writes out that mask, and then it realizes, oh, actually I haven't combined them. So you'll see those masks are there. And then if I view this just as details, if I erase anything, say I do that, you'll get this erase option in there as well, and that just defines how the masks are combined. Again, I could just clear that frame, or I could just paint a mask over it, depending on what I wanted to do. But it's pretty quick to sort of be doing the masks as it's doing that. I'd leave it going for half an hour and come back and take a look. Okay, so for alignment, we have different settings here. I found this video 1 second interval preset is really useful. You can switch to a draft if you wanted to go quicker, so we can show you that one. You can basically pick it, and you'll see like the feature amount changes depending on this draft version, for example. So if I just ran this will hopefully be at the fastest. It auto checks the mask combining, and it will just go run it to make sure. And then you can actually pick the best one, or the particular, if you only wanted paint masks to be used, you could pick those. Auto detect tends to work the best and just uses the combined ones. On the cube maps it creates, so essentially this will align all of the extracted frames using Colmap and Sphere SFM, which is kind of bundled. Those things were locked to an earlier version of Colmap. So you won't need to install it, but if you wanted to use like the raw workflows, then you would need Colmap installed. And again, I'll do that in a separate video on how to set those things up. So it registers the lat long images, and then what it's going to do is extract cube maps after that alignment and create the 6 views of that equilateral image in as part of the alignment. Now what's useful is in advanced we can use masks with alignment. So in the perfect world we get everything aligned and done, and then it's going to extract those cube maps and that's what's going into the splatting. So if we look in our folder structure, there's the col map, which is where the alignment is being generated, and then the cubic essentially is the col map export, which is what you'd be familiar with if you've done splatting before, and essentially mask and images and the sparse point cloud are added to the tool. So say if you're a post shot user, because the scripting is not sort of open, or you have to be on the higher expensive version, I'm not adding that in as part of the external setups, but it's very easy. So basically you can control click images and sparse, drag them on, and then I'm just going to open up the masks folder and I can select that and drag that on there. Just make sure I've got masks. Yes. And then make sure you set the masks to be the type you want, and the default in this case is correct, and then you just hit import. And when the align finishes, it actually will allow you to see the sparse cloud, which is very useful to kind of see how detailed that is. You can change the camera size, change the point size, and you can switch the grid off and that kind of thing. So that gives me an idea that this lined up pretty well. I think this is where we did that fixed frame, because we offset within 6 frames, you know, where we're extracting from. I've moved forward within that, so that's why that particular camera is there. So often I found keeping the distribution even is better than sort of doing that. And if I then decided I wanted to go and repaint some masks or add any of that, I could do that, go back to align, and then generate the cube maps again. So if I switched to this Python and improve points methodology, I could run that generate cube maps. And what this will do is it has a little tooltip on it as well. Go on to there. And so essentially it's using the cubic projection and retriangulating 3D points from scratch, so you're rebuilding the sparse point cloud to be more accurate to that particular model. It doesn't take too long, it takes like 3 minutes, and I've had some sort of useful results. You can see this sort of updating in here now once this has been run. And this, once this finishes, we'll hopefully give that a quick go. And you can see this isn't the full set because we only did those 30 frames, but you can see the cube maps here is how it brings them in. And the thing I really like about this methodology is once you get good alignment, then you don't have to worry about the cube maps being offset from each other, which is what we had in the older splitting method where we were using reality scan to do the alignment. Because reality scan can't deal with spherical images, you have to split them in order to do that alignment. So this method actually gives me much better results overall. So you can see this is now doing feature detection on that particular cloud to basically generate should be a denser point cloud. It's worth trying this both with and without to see what works for you and the particular scene. But you can see it's not too bad result for the only 30 cameras that's kind of in there. And so that's just regenerated. So we could pause this training, just click new. And then I can do the same thing, grab those again, and I might just see if it's not made much of a change there. I think it depends on let's cancel that because I messed that up. Okay, sparse and images, drag them on. Let's just move this over there. Click back. Open up masks. So annoying with post-shot not automatically detecting them. And then this is the version with the improved points on. Whether we see much of a difference with only 30 cameras remains to be seen, but just letting you know the options in there. Now you could go to external tools if you, and essentially that's the only difference between these, is it has like brush open in terms of running from there. So if we pause post-shot, just get rid of that. Quickly show you the external views. So basically you can hit plus here, and this essentially queues a bunch of tasks up. And some of the workflows in here use these quite extensively. The main thing you need to know before you can use it is you have to browse to where your X's are and apply them in, and then you can actually even launch them from here if you wanted to. So if I opened Litchfield, I was thinking about maybe placing these in a bit more of it keeps asking that, it's very strange. So yeah, I can open this up and just launch it from here if I wanted to, and then manually drag them in. So if we did import data set, I'll go to Cubic, just select folder there, and then the masks and everything will come up. So I can do a manual load here if I wanted to. And then obviously you start training and things will sort of work out in a similar method. I'm just going to exit that and show you if I actually add something in. So this is on brush, but say if I pick, let's go with MCMC with the viewer, then I've set up presets for a lot of these. Now you can just use the plus button here and save to a new one. So you can alter things down here, and I'll do a more advanced video on external workflows. You can also just run one instead of running all of them, because you're going to end up with a queue down here as well. So while you're tweaking things, you could be tweaking the settings here, and then you see this will load up and we'll start splatting immediately because it's running the command line with the GUI basically. So probably a slightly more in-depth one you're expecting, but this is, you could load the video on, load the preset, batch all, and you'll get a fairly good result by the end of it. Now what I can do is just close that, and I'm going to delete what we extracted from. And then I'm going to take the old completed one and run that. Now I accidentally closed software. And so if I load this on, it basically, the project name is based on the video file name, unless you alter it up here, and then you want to be loading in the projects themselves. So this was the full project with all the frames extracted, and you'll see our line we've got a lot more of a sparse point cloud in there. And same thing, I could just do open cubic, and then we'll have these files in there. When I was training, it was outputting checkpoints, so that's why that's in there like that. So again, I could just open up post shot, grab the images and the sparse cloud, drag that on, open up masks, grab that, and then just hit import. And so you can see the sort of pattern that I walked here. It's just kind of moving around it, but it's getting enough overlap between things to make sure that, because I'm being masked out from below, only really the side projections are getting the road, because there's a large proportion of me underneath. But it's a pretty good result out the box. And this is actually shot with an Insta1X. It's not even Insta X5, so it's actually 5.5K resolution. and you'll get better results with the extra details that you get from the high res cameras for the 8K. So that's a run through for the workflow. Hopefully that makes all sense, and I'll do some more detailed ones for the external workflows.